Doing what we do. We have the rare opportunity up here in the Pacific Northwest to work with these amazing creatures. These are known as the American alligator. Now, American alligators do not get enough credit. A lot of people actually feel, I've had a lot of comments that say, I hope these animals go extinct. Now,
that's horrible.
Right? Why is that horrible?
Because they actually play a vital role in the ecosystem.
They do. So they are considered a keystone species, which means that if they were to be gone, it would actually possibly collapse the entirety of the ecosystem. So they are essential. Like, there is a reason why we have alligators. We don't have alligators to be nuisances. We have alligators to be able to balance the ecosystem.
Because they're a keystone species.
Yes, and the keystone species is also just a scientific term that actually was not created until that long ago. Believe it or not.
Which means they actually provide life to many other animals just by being them.
Yes, and so we have these three gators right here. We have Sully, Wazowski, and Randall. My brain went completely blank for a minute. And alligators, here's why they're so cool. First of all, they say that they've been around since dinosaurs, right? Like, so they've done studies and stuff that says that these have been around, and they've actually had the least amount of change out of any animal in that amount of time. And these alligators here, they never stop growing. They can have up to 14 feet and over 1,000 pounds. If you see an alligator that big, that alligator has been around for a very long time. They can live up to the age of 50, not only in the wild, but in captivity also. So this is one of the very few species that actually does not like double or triple its life in captivity. Now that's super, super rare for an animal. So that just shows how amazing of a survivalist this animal can be. If they can live as long in the wild as they can in captivity, that's a pretty amazing feature. Now they have a nictitating membrane. It's a third eyelid. So when you watch them blink, you'll see a clear goggle come across, and then they'll actually blink their eye. That allows them to have that goggle as they go underwater. They can also close their ears and their nose to go underwater. They have one of the most advanced heart systems in the entire world. They actually can slow it down to 1 to 2 beats per minute, which allows them to be able to be frozen in lakes. What they do is they stick their little nose and their little eyeballs above the water, and they actually can just be frozen. It thaws, and then they are perfectly fine. That is amazing.
I feel like that's me every winter here.
Right? You just sit with your nose above your bed sheets.
I'm frozen.
Like a real bed sheet. But I think what's more amazing to me though is the fact that these are cold-blooded, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that they can allow their body temperature to go down to a thing that would kill most reptiles, right? They can handle just due to them being able to regulate their blood and cause it. The other cool thing about alligators, a lot of people will see that another alligator sometimes will rip off each other's appendages because it's mistaken identity. So when alligators come up to eat, so they're ambush predators. So if they see something, they literally just go up and they start swinging their head side to side. They have their eyes closed, and when something gets in their mouth, they grab it and they death roll. So they're not really able to go, oh wait, that's a person, or that's a dog, or they're not able to do that. They just go up, and their focus is to eat and to be able to swallow that. Now they swallow their food whole, so that's what they do. It's called a death roll. Now that death roll is not to kill the animal. That death roll is to actually rip off a piece of that animal so that they can swallow it whole. So I don't know. I'm sure all of you saw the handler get bit by an alligator. She handled that
like a pro.
She handled it very beautifully. I would have done a couple of things differently, but she did fantastic. So the first thing when she got bit by the alligator, it came out, and my guess, this is a pure speculation just because I've worked with gators for so long, but gators get into routine. So when gators see our tongues come out or things like that, and they hear the door open and they hear back, back, back to get them into the water, because we always feed our gators in the water, right? Because we don't want to feed them at the door, because when you have your gators charging door, you want them in water. So we've actually trained our alligators, and our training Sully, he's been a more complicated one, that he has to 100%. Be in the water to eat.
I think the other ones only took 2 times before they realized, oh, I'm not going to get food till I'm in the water. And Sully is stubborn.
He's stubborn as all get out. He's been a difficult one, but he's been fun. He's actually on the far end over there. Now, and he's the one that has the most beautiful teeth. It's just he's pretty exquisite. Anyway, so my assumption is that when she went to go open that slider, I would assume that they actually practice just opening a slider and feeding them, right? So that's not that great of practice, right? So you want to actually train them of how feeding happens, so that you don't have that mistaken identity. So she went in, she opened the glass slider, she tonged the water, and the way she turned and had her hand too close to the alligator's mouth with its mouth open, it just grabbed her and pulled her in. Now, when it pulled her in, she did the perfectly right thing. She wrapped her legs around it so he couldn't go into a death roll. And she rolled with him once, and then she was able to lock him and do that until he let go. And another gentleman jumped in on the back of the alligator, which probably actually wasn't necessary, because all she was waiting for is the alligator to realize what he had was not food and let go. And that's what happened. Now, they normally say that if an alligator bites you, you actually are supposed to bop him. Believe
I know.
it or not.
Ross.
Bop
Just
him.
bop it. No matter what it is, bop
The
it.
reason they say that is because what it does is it kind of throws them off and has them open up, and you're able to get away. And you're not beating this alligator. You literally just like, hey, don't do that. And so I've never... What? Is there food? Anyway, so there comes Sully. Hey, buddy.
You're bopping.
Here he comes. You know what? You literally just ate, you little hungry person, alligator thing, you.
He eats a lot.
He does eat a lot, and you have to be careful because alligators will become obese. So they will. The funny thing is that they will eat until they're full, but then they usually can go a week or two without eating before they want to eat again. Sully, he goes about 3 days, and he's like, I want to eat again. But I also think a Sully could just be in a growth spurt, because his tail's not getting thick. So you can tell if an alligator is getting too fat by the thickness of its tail and by the thickness of its back hind legs. And so he's actually not overweight, which is fantastic. They're so funny.
So I know I haven't been ignoring your comment, but as much as I hate hornets and wasps too, they do play a vital role. They are pollinators.
We do need them. And there are ways for you to be able to get them to one section. So actually sometimes what I'll do when I'm eating, and this is no joke, it's probably not the best practice, but it helps our family, is because they are pollinators. I actually will take a plate if I'm doing cooking meat or something like that, and I will actually put it to a place where we're not occupying, so that they can just go have at it somewhere else and leave us alone. And so far for me, that's worked, because I don't want to kill all of them. I don't have hi, buddy.
No, if you're being chased by an alligator, I wouldn't zigzag. I believe that's just a myth. That just slows you down.
Cross and weave. No. First of all, if you're being chased by an alligator, that's impressive, because that's rare. So alligator's this is why it's truly remarkable. They've done some studies on it where, like, you have rabbit heart, right? And our hearts, where when we start running, our heart rate starts to elevate, right? So that we can accommodate, the exercise and the exertion. Alligators don't. They're unable to raise their heart rates. It's a really, really cool study to read about. They really have one of the most unique heart systems. And so their heart can only get to a certain elevation, so they can only exert themselves for so long until, here goes, whoa!
And take some right in.
Oh, Sully. Oh, Sully. We were playing a game the other day where I was going, Sully! Come here!
April, I love that movie.
Good boy! Good boy! Hi, bud! You're ferocious! So he thinks he's gonna eat right now, but you're not yet. I will thaw some chicken for you, though, if you're that hungry. But, excuse me. I've been losing my voice for a few days since I talked for 7 hours straight. But alligators really are remarkable. Please do not, do we believe in alligator farming? No, not really, because that's actually, not much different than fur farming. Mm-hmm. So that is not something that we want to see, nor do we agree with an animal being bred to have its skin utilized. Like, that's kind of sad. It's actually very sad. what happens is there are some facilities, like I don't want to say it's Cabela's. There was some place like Cabela's where they have, they have the big tanks and stuff inside their things. And this guy asked the guy, because he was feeding the gators, and he said, how are these gators all so small? How are they not growing? And he was like, well, here's what happens. They come and they drop off all these baby alligators, and then once they get to a certain thing, they come back and they take all of them and replace them with small baby gators. So what they're doing is they're actually bringing those small gators, allowing them to get to a certain size so that they can take them back and farm them. And they just rotate them out. And so these people are feeding them and growing them for them, and then they are reaping the benefit of the skin. Very sad. Very sad. So animals in captivity too, for that reason, don't really agree with that. But if you are taking in an animal that cannot be re-released into the wild and you're giving it a good home, that I do agree with. I actually have a meeting with somebody I'm going to talk to you about and show you.
Did you get a fly?
Show you their information. Isn't how they swim just absolutely the most coolest thing in the world? Like they just have their little rudder and their rudder. I mean, like they just one swoosh of their tail back and forth and they just get this beautiful glide that they can have.
I did see that 17-foot alligator. That was pretty impressive.
Where was that at?
In Florida.
That's got to be like 48-year-old
right?
gator.
A big boy.
That's amazing.
So these guys, they can't. I mean, they're not vegetarians, so they won't really eat fruits and vegetables. The only time we give these guys is actually about now in the fall. We'll give them apples, and they'll go chomp on those apples, and it actually helps clean their system out to get them ready for winter. But yeah, they pretty much eat any kind of wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, if a deer gets too close, or Holly gets too close, or...
Hi, Sully. Yeah, they had a ball in here. I'm not sure what they did with it, but they do get enrichment.
They do play with the ball. I think you pulled it out last time you were draining. I think it's on the other side of there.
I might have it. It's been
a long few weeks. All right, let's go learn about another animal. Anyway, those are just really remarkable. Let's go this way. Because Jeremy and I have